Okay, here's an overview on a compilation of my lecture notes on the hand over the past several years. I've drawn this up and cleaned it up to sort of hit all of the highlights of the points that I like to make about the hand. So you can download this off of Canvas for a clearer image of it, but you should also sketch it into your own notes for your best learning. But let's take a look at what's going on here in the image. Um, we have basically a cleaner, nicer drawing of the step-by-step construction of the bones of the hand that we just did. And so you can see I'm showing that the total length of the hand is 7/8 of a head. That if we divide that in half, it takes us to the knuckle of the middle finger. You can see the bones of the lower arm, the radius, and the ulna. And the major bones here, the carpal bones, metacarpal bones, phalanges. And we have proximal phalanx, intermediate phalanx, and distal phalanx. So we've just gone over all of that in the previous video. But so let's get into some more rich information that helps us to draw the hand well. And so if we look at these two drawings in particular, I'm targeting what I feel are the most common errors in drawing the hand. So let's go through those now. Number one, and they're listed right here actually, so I'm going to put a little number one next to this. Number one, the wrist is its own space and angle. And so here's what I mean by that. If we look at this drawing of this arm coming down, we can see that the radius would end about here. You can see that that's where the radius is. And so this whole zone would be occupied by the carpal bones. And I feel that if I have to teach a student the most important secret to drawing the hands, it's this one right here. And that is that the wrist is its own space and angle. So what we tend to have done in the past, what we've tended to have done in the past, is to draw a line, or at least think of a line, where the arm comes to an end and we begin the hand after that line, kind of like two states coming together. So instead of having a state line as our idea of the wrist, let's think of the wrist as being its own state. So we've got a state, and another state. And so it's its own space. And as I say, it's its own angle. So let's look at this diagram right here. If we travel through the bones of the arm, what we'd be seeing right here is the radius, and we'd be seeing the ulna here on the profile. What follows right after that is this, and you can see we're stepping down. So the wrist, the bones of the wrist, which are the carpal bones here, they have their own angle. So the radius is this way, the carpal bones go down, and then we move through the metacarpals at a different angle. So the wrist is its own show. We have to really, when we're drawing the hand, we have to take a moment apart and say, let me draw the wrist. So you'd say to yourself, I'm going to draw the arm, I'm going to draw the wrist, and then I'm going to draw the hand. So it's its own show from now on. Okay, so that's a major point. The next major point, point two, the knuckles are not straight. And I'm talking about the knuckles not being straight in two ways. So the first would be this idea. So here we see the knuckles are not straight. They create an arc, right? Look here, there's an arc. Because each metacarpal is a different length. None of them are the same. So we get an arc. If they were all the same length, we'd have a straight line, but we don't. So look for the arc or look for an angle. So this being the lowest point of the angle and these going up. So here's the bad hand on this side, straight knuckles. No. Now, when I say the knuckles are not straight, I mean that in two different formats. Definitely clearly here on the dorsal view, it's obvious. But also in this view, in a foreshortened view looking towards the knuckles or looking towards even the open hand, I'll draw your attention to this right here. As the fingers are extended directly towards us, a foreshortened hand in this more diagrammatic way where the fingers, we imagine them coming straight at us. What we see here are that the knuckles should not be straight across. So that's a no. What we do want is this. We want this more aerodynamic shape where the middle finger knuckle is the peak. So what we're looking at here is the thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky. And we want this shape. So that's not straight either, as you can see. So we're curved here, we're curved in this manner, we're curved in this manner. And in this view, this is the tricky part. We put both of those curves together at the same time. So this view becomes tricky because we're weighing out actually 3 different factors. Number 1 is that we want the knuckles to curve this way. Number 2, we want the knuckles to curve this way in space as well. And number 3, the knuckles have varying lengths. So try to draw that. And when we see the hand foreshortening towards us in 3/4 view like this, well, now the knuckles end up in some weird, you really get a wave pattern, like an S-curve thing like this. And that represents the knuckles changing lengths, this being the highest, but also being the furthest, longest advancing knuckle. Okay, that was point number 2. And major point number 3 for the hand is, we've already covered in the previous video, the fingers curve towards the middle finger. So one of the biggest errors that we make when we draw the hand is we think of the fingers as being parallel to each other, when in fact they all curve in towards the middle finger. So the middle finger is this axis. We're going to curve in the other way, and curve in the other way. So keep those fingers arcing towards the middle finger as you head in. This drawing here shows we're flipping the hand over to look at the palm, the palmar surface of the hand. So that's an easy anatomical term, the palmar surface, as opposed to the dorsal surface of the hand. And remember, if we imagine the hand as a dolphin, it would have a dorsal fin coming off of its back. So the back hand is a dorsal surface. The palm side is the palmar surface. In the previous lecture, we talked about an idea where the flesh of the palm extends further on the palmar side than it does on the dorsal side. And what that results in is this webbing, as you can see here. On the palmar side, between the fingers, the webbing appears to extend further, and on the dorsal surface, it retracts backward. So what that means when we look at the palm is that the knuckle joint, so the ball that would be here, as you can see I've drawn an arrow connecting it over, is now here. So I invite you to try that on yourself. If you locate the knuckle on the backhand or dorsal side, we could even bend the hand a little bit to see the knuckle more clearly. It turns into a ball when we flex the fingers forward. Find that and then rotate your hand over and try to find where the head of that knuckle is in your palm surface. So here, as you can see, I've got that knuckle located on this side, and it's surprisingly far down. You can see if I go straight through that knuckle, I'm here, pretty far down into the palm, which is exactly why this distal palmar crease takes place, is that as the hand folds, it's going to fold behind the heads of the metacarpals. So visualize the heads of the metacarpals are there, and that's why the crease develops right there, the distal palmar crease. Any other points that I want to make here? I try to show in the fist here the difference in the shapes created by the ends of the bones. So this is a useful drawing in that when we imagine the fist posed in a fist pose, where the metacarpophalangeal joints, which is the knuckle joint, is folded at 90 degrees. what happens is that the head of the metacarpal is now exposed fully on the surface. If you can imagine that the base of the phalanges is now folded away. It's out of the way now. We have a fully rounded, exposed ball. So you can try that on yourself. You can take your hand and then fold it into a fist, and suddenly the knuckles become round. And that's simply because we're moving the phalanx out of the way. So we're taking this and we're bending it away from us. Maybe this drawing is a little bit easier to understand that idea. You can see there's a ball here, which is covered and blocked by this base. Well, if I rotate that down and away, it's going to expose this ball on the surface. So there we have spherical knuckles when we have a fist. But notice that the next joint down, now this is called the proximal interphalangeal joint. It sounds really crazy, but it's pretty simple in terms of terminology. Proximal means it's here, it's closer to the hand. And the interphalangeal part means it's between the phalanges. So the proximal interphalangeal joint. You can see that when we fold the fingers into a fist, it exposes the condyle shape of the head of the proximal phalanx. So we don't see that in this view, but when I flex and fold, you can start to see double curves happening. My pinky shows it really clearly. You'll see the double curvature forms taking place at the proximal interphalangeal joint. And then obviously the distal interphalangeal joint would be this one. So look for those different characters of forms at the different links. But in both interphalangeal joints, both the proximal and distal interphalangeal joints, we're going to see this double curved character because we're looking at condylar or condyle-like forms in those areas. But at the knuckles, or what is known as the metacarpophalangeal joint, at the knuckles, metacarpophalangeal joint, we will see spherical forms, at least when the hand is posed in a fist. One thing I just noticed that I wanted to point out as a major idea in the hand is the step down concept. Now, we've already covered part of that when we said that the wrist is a step down. So when we travel through the radius, we're going straight out here. Then we hit the carpal bones and we step down. Well, now we're going to go straight out through the metacarpal, and I want you to notice that there is, again, a step down as you travel from the body of the hand into the finger. So the plane of the knuckle is definitely a step downwards into the fingers. Notice this diagram also shows us that the thumb hangs out down here below. And you can pose your hand in the same manner to your face, and you can see the step down in the wrist, you can see the step down in the knuckles, and you can see the thumb is clearly down here. So observe that on your own hand and just let that sink into your memory. And this diagram as well, you see the thumb way down here. Okay, these are your big strategy points for drawing hands well. Especially these three rules. The wrist is its own space, knuckles are not straight, fingers all curve in towards the middle finger. Those are the three major stumbling blocks that I find students have trouble with in drawing the hand. And you know me, I like to identify what those common problems are, give them a name, and figure out how to troubleshoot them so we can just not have to deal with those when we draw. We can get to better drawing quicker. Hands are often cited as the hardest things to draw, so I hope that these are going to make a difference for you.